Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra,
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people.
associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked.
and sometimes what didn't,
You will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts.
And inspire you to do even greater things.
Our next guest in our special for the month of March featuring women who've worked in tech, Shobha CS, founder-director of the 10th Cinema Film School, is a multifaceted personality who has had a career dotted with myriad experiences, from starting out as a physics graduate and entering the world of software development, where she worked with unique initiatives such as the Bangalore Software Process Improvement Network or BSPIN and knowledge management special interest groups, to running knowledge management and software quality engineering practices in the organizations she worked at. Shobha then talks about her transition to working in the space of skill development and into cinema. She also shares her thoughts on the future of education, how people and women in particular can use theatre as a means of confidence building and having their voices heard, to a message for women on how to add colour in their lives. Listen on. Good morning, Shobha. It's very nice to have you on the Software People Stories. A very warm welcome to you.
Very good morning, Chitra. It's nice to be talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shobha. So we usually start by asking our guests to introduce themselves to our listeners. How would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm a South Indian girl, born and brought up in Karnataka, speaking Kannada as a mother tongue. I did my master's in physics from Mysore University. Then I joined software with Kirloskar Computers. Then I worked in IT industry for about 23 years, working in different companies in different roles. My last job was with HCL Pero Systems, which became Pero Systems and then Dell Systems. So I worked in the area of software development and project management for about 10 years. Then next 13 years, I worked in software quality and then knowledge management and training in last couple of years. Briefly, that's my journey in IT area. After I quit my job, I wanted to work in the space of skill development. I worked with a company called India Can in skill building for a couple of years, which had courses like broadcast journalism post-graduation diploma in collaboration with NDTV. I started my own organization. Rather, me and my husband started together. It's called 10th Cinema. It's a film school. We train students in different aspects of filmmaking like acting, script, direction, cinematography, editing, and so on. From software, right now I'm moved on to a creative field, and I'm very much enjoying what I'm doing. I guess that's a brief introduction about me.
Thank you, Shobha. Sounds like an amazing journey. I can see many questions coming up in the course of this conversation. Moving from software development to creativity. So I'm wondering if we can just start with that, where you said, in the first 10 years, you were in the area of software development. So what did you find in terms of creativity that helped you in either the processes or in the creation of software? And what were some of the lessons that you learned or you took away from those 10 years in software development?
Well, from the childhood, I had a habit of reading books. I read a lot of fiction, a lot of Kannada literature and a little bit of English literature. I was very open-minded, and I would also enjoy different forms of art, like going to a play or watching a good film and so on. So I always had this habit of, spending good amount of time in my life on these aspects. So when I joined software, of course, you work on a very intense timelines and, deadlines and so on. But always in my mind, I had a feeling that, the work is not 100% of my life. I mean, I would spend good amount of my energetic time in the work, and I would really enjoy doing it, and I would be committed to it. But I always felt there is other aspects of life also. in a way that kept me to balance my mind. So sometimes, when you feel not so good about what you're doing, or stressed out at a few moments, then I would always fall back on the other aspects to pull up myself, to get more motivated. So for example, if I watch a very good play in Rangashankara, if I really enjoy it, I would always feel I can get motivated, say, for next 1 or 2 weeks, just, that experience of watching that play. And that would give me a lot of, strength to move on. Likewise, if I like my, work, if that is giving me a high at that point of time, so I would, if rest of my life, if I have something low, then I would, bounce back from that strength. So always I felt, having different interests help me to, continue to balance myself and continue to hold my interest and enthusiasm level most of the time. Having an open-minded approach with the creativity, maybe like, seeing there a lot of experiments, a lot of innovation, a lot of new thinking. I was always very open-minded about new things and also very enthusiastic. So handling change management was in a way easy for me because I was very open-minded to accept new things and, look forward to what that change, gives me an opportunity to explore myself better. So I guess that way, having this cultural hobbies or interests in my life always helped me to manage my life in totality much better. In terms of working with technology, I always, wanted to learn, from others' experience and, others' knowledge as well, because every experience and knowledge, we cannot have it in our own timeline. So I was very open to that, and I was part of many benchmarking groups when I was working there. Whether it's it's called BSPIN, which is a Bangalore software benchmarking organization, or I was also part of the knowledge management special interest group. So I was very regular with these meetings, and I was very enthusiastic to go and attend and then really learn from that. I learned a lot of new ideas, new concepts from these meetings, and I was able to also implement many of these ideas in my organization. That gave me an opportunity to look at different perspectives of the same kind of work, what we were doing it. That gave me many new ideas and try different things, or look at things in a different way. So I always felt connecting with people doing the same thing in different places, different organizations, or different communities would always help us to, do our job much better.
So thank you, Shobha, for sharing those insights. What I had heard from several of the early contributors to BSPIN were some of the challenges that they faced while trying to encourage companies to contribute data so that benchmarking could be done, or perhaps a baseline could be drawn. What did you experience from having to convince companies to part with that information and share it with the larger community? And how did that all come together?
I think one is developing a trust with the community. So we didn't start a data sharing and benchmarking from day one. So initially when we started the group, it was more of sharing our experiences, knowledge, and any special initiatives that we have done. So once we are able to connect, understand each other pretty well, understand what is our objectives, pretty well. So then we came with this idea of, data sharing. Of course, we had the non-disclosure agreement, and, also we would share a sample data, not giving exactly the client information and so on. And also we had a method wherein, how we actually share the data and use the data. So we had a lot of guidelines about it. So that made us pretty confident to share the data and then, come out with a lot of benchmark analysis and so on. I think very important thing was to have a common vision, objectives, and trust within the community that will help us to do this exercise.
Of late, people sort of forget that having a common objective, or that common North Star, as we call it, is so important and so vital in actually getting any kind of community rallied around a specific objective or a purpose. What are your experiences from having to set those kind of goals for people to come together and either solve a problem or, work towards a common purpose?
I was involved with many initiatives in my organization. I think one is when you want to bring in a change, look at the change or a new thing that we are trying to bring in, give it a lot of thought to make sure that these ideas make sense, they're relevant, they will benefit the organization. So do a lot of thinking before we come out with these ideas. And then once we want to implement these ideas, take it to the people, so we need to have a proper plan in terms of sharing the overall plan with the people, and then sharing them the benefit of coming out with these objectives. And then we have to get all the stakeholders involved and give them the right amount of the time or any other things that are required to implement this. So we need to understand that they're all working in their own projects and having their own deadlines, and how would they find time to do it, or what would motivate them to do it. So we did a lot of things, especially in the area of knowledge management as contests in my previous organization. So we would kind of set in a competitive spirit in the organization that would, motivate a lot of people to come out with the sharing of the knowledge. So a lot of times, people would be doing, very challenging work, assignments, and they would gain a lot of knowledge. Given a right platform, I think they would like to share that knowledge, and that knowledge to be acknowledged, recognized, and rewarded. That's how we went about, implementing some of the initiatives. So we have to give attention to the people, respect them, respect their knowledge, and then give them a right platform. There is a visibility of their contribution, and then also make them understand how this knowledge will be, utilized. If there is a right intention and they're sure that this will help, I think people come forward to do it. So sometimes some of the initiatives in the organizations, they start, but there is no actual benefit of doing it, or it's not really taken to the closure to get the right amount of implementation. So I think once people know that that's been really useful, I think people would like to share it and contribute to the initiative.
Thanks, Shobha. In fact, my next question to you is on knowledge management. So different people have very different perspectives of knowledge management, and organizations have had different approaches to whether it is consolidating a common pool of shared knowledge for the greater benefit of the organization, or even try and make it accessible to all in the form of a simple internal Wikipedia-like reference. What have been some of your takeaways from your experience in knowledge management? What would you like to share with our listeners, especially for people who would like to look at knowledge management as an area of work?
See, knowledge management always, for people to contribute, it becomes an additional effort and time from their perspective apart from what they're doing. So it really needs a lot of motivation. One is to come out with very innovative way of how do you want the knowledge to be shared. One is in terms of systems, smart systems, where it's very easy to use, and then how people can share their knowledge as easily as possible, and also giving them a lot of recognition and platforms to showcase their knowledge. Also, as I said earlier, any kind of competitive spirit we can generate within an organization, that would also help, especially if you get this approach top down, wherein senior management is very much part of this initiative. They do get involved in the entire process, so that would make these initiatives go deeper into the organization. We also need to understand that we have to give them some kind of incentives or some kind of different way of sharing the knowledge. For example, we did some initiative called KFS, where every project will have their own space, and then they would share a knowledge, and then there would be some prizes for the projects which can share knowledge in a more meaningful or a different kind of way. That would really motivate the teams to come out and put up their own way the project desks to share the knowledge with the people. Inherently, I think we all like to share what we know. It's just that giving that kind of space and importance that would make it work. So the process has to be very interesting. The process has to be very easy to do it, and the process has to be rewarding. I think that's when the knowledge management initiatives will work.
Good thought, Shobha. I'm sure our listeners will find something helpful out there for them to refer to, and which is also perhaps some of the intent behind the software people stories is what is it that people can pick up in terms of small little nuggets from people who've been there, done that, and can share something of what their takeaways have been or what their experiences have been. So to that, you said you spent some time in quality and quality engineering. What are some
Yes.
of the lessons that you would take away from those experiences?
Well, I worked a lot in the area of software quality management. I did a lot of defining these software processes, mapping them to various standards like CMM, CMMI, ISO 9001, and PCMM, and different other standards. So, a lot of times people find following process is a kind of hurdle or a bottleneck, or it takes a lot of their time. One is to make these processes as light and as convenient as possible. End of the day, that process has to help people in their own work. So that is one thing. Give them right amount of training so that they understand why this is really required. The training and then making the processes very lightweight. Again, kind of making people part of reviewing this or auditing this will also help them to get their buy-in. So we have to get them involved in all the activities that happens in the entire process. It should not be like quality team defines everything and takes it to the people. It should be from day one, we have to get all the stakeholders involved in the entire process. A lot of the inputs and ideas should come from them in the entire process. I think that's when they see their own ideas, which are being implemented in the process steps, that's when they find value in that. And I think they would following the process or, having a discipline in terms of that will happen, at least much better than otherwise.
Thanks, Shobha. I liked what you said in terms of making processes light and convenient. Completely understand that most people think of them as a hurdle and bottlenecks and something that weighs heavy and, not my issue, but something that the organization wants. How was your transition from, working in the corporate world to moving into the space of skill development and then on to cinema? What was that journey like?
I was handling quality knowledge management and training in my last job. So that way, moving into skill development was in a way a natural transition for me, since I had done this before. But definitely doing on my own is very different. It took some time initially because when you work in an organization, so you have, a lot of teams, you have like HR, recruitment, finance, and here we are, everything I'm trying to do on myself. Even, giving an offer letters to somebody, I had to sit and draft the entire, the letter and, do things on my own. So it was a little unsettling in the beginning, that you're doing at a much smaller scale and with less people and taking a lot of things on myself. But then, once you start doing it, you kind of get along. And also the fact that it's happening as the speed and everything as per my wish. And, it is going at a pace that I would like it to happen. Also gave me a lot of freedom in terms of my own time and space. Once you start doing things, I think, the best feeling is when you see people developing these skills and then, getting into some good jobs or, positions. And then when they come back and share their stories, so that's when I feel really nice about it. So definitely it was a lot of hard work and, unsettling and different feeling. I think once it went into a steady phase, I could enjoy it much more. It was very gratifying to see that I'm able to set up this team and this vision, and then we are able to support many, students in this area. Especially my experience with, this film institute last few years has been very rewarding. It's very creative field. So I'm kind of, I used to do like a lot of software audits and be part of the management reviews and, driving the various processes, all that. But here, we are kind of finding out a play for our next production. We are looking for a script for our short films, and we are looking out for a scouting for a location for our short films, or identifying the actors, looking at sets and props, and somebody to bring in music and so on. So it's very, in a way, it's very liberating, very satisfying. Even though we keep doing this, repeating the same courses, every course in a way based on the output of what we do, every course brings in a lot of new aspects. And I also work with a lot of creative people in the industry. So a lot of Kannada film directors, music directors, script writers, cinematographers come and teach in our institute. Talking to them, interacting with them, designing the courses, and seeing that implemented is a very nice experience for me. It doesn't so much look like work, to me now. It's a very easy, very interesting, to get up and go to work every day and manage various courses and, marketing on these courses and seeing what projects our students are doing, and whatever, upgrading the infrastructure, looking at all these things. It's very nice feeling. I would also like to state that my work in corporate world helped me to manage an institute like this in terms of its operation. So even though the content is very different here, but my experience of the course creation, how do you make it interesting, how do you make it more practical, how do you bring in the actual experience, how do you improve from course to course, and what are the knowledge management aspects you can bring it here, what are the process changes you can do it. So it's all going in my head internally when I run this institute. And I think this, my corporate knowledge really helped me to continue running this small little organization that we have. And it's very rewarding. It's very, very interesting as well.
Thank you, Shobha. I love the way you've tied in everything. It almost seems like your life, in some sense, has come a full circle where you've managed to learn and leverage and transition to so many different kinds of jobs. I'm sure many of our listeners will find it very inspiring. My next question to you is actually, I have two questions. And the first one is on education itself. I see a connect between what you talked about in terms of creating different curricula outside of mainstream education, and your best feeling coming in terms of seeing people develop those skills and actually find gainful employment. So what do you think the future of education could be? That's the first question, and once you finish that, I will ask my second one.
Well, in terms of future education, I think one is each student has to really find what they like about it. Today's younger generation, they are very, aware of what they like, what they don't like. It is best the students choose what they like and, do it. A lot of our students, in fact, in our weekend courses come from software background. So a lot of software engineers do join our weekend acting courses. And when I hear their stories, most of them say they had this interest in terms of acting, but they were not allowed to continue after their school days or whatever. So they were kind of pushed in to do engineering, get their jobs. Now, once they're kind of settled down in their jobs, so they wanted to explore their own interests And that's how most of them come and join our courses. I think future education should be more like you find pretty early what you like, and get in there, so that like when you're in your 20s, you're really able to find your mark, and you have done already a substantial work in that area. For example, we have a student who joined filmmaking course at the age of 17, and in 3 years he is just 20, and he's already done cinematography for a film, and he's done a lot of shoot for the music videos and photo shoots, and worked in a lot of films. So I guess by 25, he would have had such an immense experience in this area. I think it's not really required to study, multiple subjects, different things. Students would love probably studying less subjects, but what they like, and really become masters in that. I think those students who can do it will be able to really accomplish a lot of things. I think we should start getting into specializations much early in their education system, and then go much deeper in those areas which they like. I think that's what makes them have a lot of success in their life, because these days people don't want to wait for a long period of time to reach 40s and get their peak in terms of the career opportunities. So, and also the education institutes have to offer those kind of courses where they can start early and then go deep dive into those areas, and then they're able to pick up the knowledge pretty well. And also in terms of practicality of the knowledge, they are able to jump into the work.
Nice, Shobha. This is a really interesting outlook toward education and perhaps how to encourage children. I hope there are a lot of parents amidst our listeners who can listen to some of these thoughts. So, my second question, in line with perhaps what you're doing now, was a thought that came around to me as this conversation was happening and when I had met you earlier. And I was telling you that these series of episodes that we're trying to put together around Women's Day, a lot of women say that they're not very confident, or rather lack the confidence to stand up and actually speak out and give shape to their ideas and share them with a wider community of people. And I was just thinking, things like cinema and acting and theater are powerful mediums through which it can help people, and especially women, find their voices. Would you have any thoughts on these aspects with respect to this? What do you think?
Well, definitely this can be, one of the ways how they can pick up confidence. Like, for example, join an acting course. So then not only learn the acting and able to perform in a play or a movie. So this whole learning acting is like they have to use their body, they have to use their mind, they have to use their emotion, all of it together. And also the way whole art space, the works, they have to be good in their language. They have to understand at least some amount of stories, or good writers, and watch some interesting plays or read and so on. So it exposes them to all these things that makes them become more confident, and improves their self-esteem. They're very comfortable with their body language, they're comfortable with their voice. So definitely, doing an acting course helps them improve in a lot of, other areas as well, in terms of their personality, to express themselves much better. We are seeing a lot of us, even young students, who kind of lack the confidence to speak in front of other people, or even just express themselves, what they like, what they don't like. They're able to improve on these areas by being part of this course and the process. There can be many other ways, but definitely being part of a acting or a theater is one way to improve their own expression and ability to communicate freely, and in a much better way than what they can do before.
Nice, Shobha. Maybe we could pick this up as a future conversation. I was just thinking maybe another kind of a podcast, perhaps dedicated to confidence. And I like what you said in terms of using all three: mind, body, and emotion, which are fundamentally at the root of who we are, and translate them into something that is very powerful and encourage a lot more people to get involved in activities like this. alongside their daily jobs or any other activity that they may be doing. One more question, and again, based on the conversation that we had, was, as somebody who has done it, who has also stayed with cultural aspects such as literature, dance, theater, or cinema throughout your corporate experience. You mentioned that earlier in the conversation that helped you. How would you encourage people, and especially women, to keep these dimensions in order to bring about balance in whatever they do?
One is having an interest and enthusiasm in these things, and finding time to be in touch point with with their interests. That comes to, again, how do we manage our time and how do we manage our energies, rather. How can we probably do more in a day, maybe by having a right kind of food and right kind of exercise mindset, and also delegation of the work, so which gives us a lot of time to do what we want. It's very important to have some time for ourselves apart from whatever role that we are doing as a professional, as a mother, as a wife. So apart from all that, we have to find some space for ourselves to be connected to our interests, our aspirations. It's not very easy when you work, manage house, manage children, and then have a very demanding work. But I think one is definitely to improve our own energy and interest levels, with various tools that are available, maybe like meditation, yoga, and so on. Then how do we find, time to still invest our time in what we like, apart from the work that we are doing? I think it's very important to stay connected to our cultural root, our spiritual root, apart from what we are doing at all times. So that's when we can say we are living life with full vibrancy or full colors. Otherwise, it would become pretty dull kind of a life with just few colors in front of us.
Nicely put, Shobha. And I think it's a wonderful way to round off this conversation that we've had. I want to say a very big thank you to you for your time and sharing so many different thoughts with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chitra. It was really nice talking to you, and it made me to think about go back to my corporate experience and, relook at those moments that I enjoyed and the experience that I've gained. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chitra.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Malavika for promoting the Software People Stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.